Welcome to Try Not to Overthink It, where we explore the intricate landscape of mental health, well being, and everyday life. I'm RJ.
And I'm Khalil.
Join us as we dive into insightful conversations, share expert perspectives, and personal stories that shed light on the various dimensions of mental wellness. Whether you're seeking guidance, inspiration, or a deeper understanding of the human mind, this podcast is your safe space to engage, learn, and navigate the journey to a happier, healthier self. If you're new to the channel, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification button so that you do not miss out on any future content.
All right. Today, we'll set it off. We have a special guest host, Marcellus Brooms, licensed professional counselor, and also author of a new book he just released, Thoughts from Within, that's available on Amazon for purchase. Today, we're sticking on a topic that we as men really think that it hits the majority of men, right? And RJ, you want to introduce the topic?
So today we are going to be speaking on the topic of learning how to lead.
Yes, very important. As men, right, we think that we're qualified to lead just because we're males, right? But it's a learning process. And if you don't have another male to learn from in the household, or you don't have that example of a leader, right, how are you going to know how to lead? And the reason why this topic is very pertinent to what we're discussing today is because the book really, Marcellus, you're very open and you see some of the authenticity, the vulnerability, right? The things that we look for in a book. Where you're saying, hey, I have these struggles learning how to lead and the different things I deal with my family. So it's a very special wonderful event to have you here for us so you can kind of unpack that book and unpack what you've gained about being the head of your household and leading your family.
Yeah, thank you much. Thank you very much for having me here. And I'm a big fan of your podcast. I know you guys are close to 100 episodes, and I'm just grateful to be here. Thank you for just giving me the opportunity to share leadership qualities in the household and my book that I just wrote.
RJ, you want to kick it off?
Yeah. So Marcellus, tell us the inspiration behind writing the book in the first place. Like what inspired you to kind of put pen to paper and then put your ideas, your thoughts, your feelings out there for the world to, kind of consume?
I just love to write. That's the first and foremost. I love to write. And it was kind of like a form of therapy, just to write. And a lot of people was like, oh, you really have some powerful messages in here. Maybe you should put some thoughts together and release a book. But a lot of it focused on leadership struggles and just me developing as a leader. I didn't just start out, just wake up one day and become a strong leader in the household. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of sacrifice. A lot of mistakes were made. But it just shows the growth that I made to be a leader in the household and a leader in my field at times as well.
That's right.
Okay. One of the things that, for me, I think that for a lot of us that we struggle with as men is understanding leadership versus control.
Mm-hmm.
I think that for a lot of us, we think that, hey, I'm the man, I'm supposed to be in charge. Not understanding that leadership isn't about domination, it's about direction. And I know that was something that you like when we've had conversations off camera, that was something that you talked about, was that as the man, it was important for you to set that tone, set that purpose, set that direction for the rest of the household to follow. And that as a real leader, one of the things that stood out to me when we were having the conversation was that you shared that as a real leader, you listen before you decide. You don't just shut out what everyone else is saying, but you invite their feedback and their input. But it doesn't always mean that, just because you're the leader, it doesn't mean that you're the loudest voice in the house. So can you kind of expand upon that?
Yeah, so like in my family, they may have some concerns they'll bring to me instead of me just, like you said, lashing out or just giving out orders. I listen to what they have to say and try to come up with a resolution. And also I learned to, as a leader, my spouse or wife is like a co-facilitator in a group. When
Absolutely.
I work with I've worked with other women in the group and we came up with a plan and we worked it out together, but it wasn't like I'm dominating her or she was dominating me, even though she might be well versed in a topic. We still kind of work together as a team, and we always end up doing very well, and the clients really appreciated it in the field. But back to home, I try to listen to their concerns, like as I said before, and put everything into consideration
Mm-hmm.
because you don't want to be like the dominant one all the time, and like you said, there's a thin line between control and being a leader, and I try not to get into the realms of being in control because that shows insecurity in me, and then that can spread to the others in the household as well. And I want them to see a positive example. I want them to see confidence. I want them to see no insecurities as far as like I'm not afraid to make mistakes.
Right. Right. And one thing that the audience doesn't know is Marcellus has a house full of boys. All his children are
Well,
boys. How
yes,
many altogether?
4 boys.
Four
Four
boys,
boys.
right? He's almost got a basketball team. So you know, you got to admit, anytime you have four boys run around the house, there's got to be a lot of commotion, confusion, just a lot going on. And the one thing is, you need a strong leader in order for four boys to be able to follow, right? And the mother has to play her part, your wife, right? And I love the way you said, hey, she's a co-facilitator, right? Like no one is in charge, right? You two form together as being the pillar, the head of the household, and you all make decisions cohesively, right? And that's the thing that I think people forget as parents, right? You got to have two people that are on board with, especially if you have multiple kids, you're going to face triangulation, right?
Absolutely.
You gonna have one child coming to dad saying, "Hey, mom said I could have such and such." If you don't fact check him, you're gonna be giving that child what he wants every single
Absolutely.
time, right? You got to fact check it. So, can you tell us a little bit about that, especially with four children?
Yeah, we have to work as a team. Like because if we don't work as a team, then like you said, it's going to be division.
Uh-huh.
Because kids are gonna do that. They're gonna try to get what they want. So we work as a team. If there's a dispute, like if they're upset with me or upset with her, and let's say we're wrong, we're not gonna disrespect each other in front of the children. We'll talk about it like, hey, that was wrong what you did, but we'll save each other's face because we don't want, because then that'll open the door for them to, attack us. So we try to like work together as a team and um, deal with the kids as a team because, like I said, they'll come back and they'll try to like split to get what they want. But as I
Uh-huh.
learned, we have to be a team 100%. Because
Yeah.
as a kid, I've done it myself, and I got what I wanted. And growing up, I see what my parents were talking about. And now I see why they work together as a team against me at times when I try to get away with whatever I wanted at the time. But that shows them that, hey, we're united.
Yes.
You're not going to be able to get over on us.
Yeah, the United Front is a very healthy and positive thing for your kids to see, right? Because, like you said, if I'm insecure, then I want to be total control, right? I need to
Uh-huh.
be in total control. But if I have a united front, my partner's got my back, and I have to trust that she or he has my back, right?
Uh-huh.
And this is for females as well, right? I don't want you all to think this is all about leadership, because what if you don't have a partner and you're just a single female or a single male leading a household full of kids, right? And you're the head of the household. Still, there are some characteristics and character traits that you need. And I think the book really expounds on that, where you see some parts of the book where you're talking about, hey, man, like I'm scared. There was an earthquake. When he talked about the earthquake that was in New Jersey, it's like, there's an earthquake. I'm scared, but I got to make sure these kids are all right, right? In that duality of thought, right? I'm going to internally make sure that I ground myself so when I'm around the kids, they don't see that, right? And so that's a leader.
Uh-huh.
People forget about that. The leader has to be able to emotionally regulate in order for you to be able to be in charge.
Well, you have to do more than just emotionally regulate. You also have to lead with character.
Right.
Integrity sets the tone in everything that you do. Your family follows what you do, not just what you say.
Hmm.
And when you are consistently saying the same thing all the time, consistency builds trust. And if your words and actions align, your household feels secure, and people will consistently do what you're asking them to do and meet the expectations that you set. Emotional maturity is leadership. You
Yeah.
know, you have to know how to manage your anger. You have to know how to manage your ego. You have to know how to manage your pride and keep peace in your home. And, that's where for a lot of us, we sometimes forget that. We forget that people are watching us and people are taking notes. And I share with my clients all the time when I teach the anger management group. For a lot of us, we move through life doing the same thing that we've always done because it's always worked for us, not really understanding that it's never worked. It's just, we're just perpetuating a cycle of brokenness. And so it's just one of those things where that's where, like, when you first talked to me about, sitting down and interviewing Marcellus, I was like, this is a really good idea. Because for a lot of us, we operate based off of what we think leadership is, not really having a true understanding and a true definition of what real leadership is.
And one thing I learned too is just standing up. Keeping your word. If you say you're going to do something, you make sure you do it, because they kids watch everything you do,
Oh yeah.
and people watch everything that you do. So if you say you're going to do something, you have to follow through. If you don't, then that's where problems can start.
Right.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I mean, I'm a person, I stand on what I said. I mean, you may not like it. I may not have meant to communicate it to you in that way, but I stand on the content of what I said. But as I said earlier, you have to be consistent in what you're saying. Consistency is what makes something a standard.
Yeah.
You know, and a standard can be consistently applied no matter who it is, no matter what the situation is. That's what makes it a standard. Where we sometimes get ourselves in trouble, not just inside of the home, but outside the home, is we're very flexible with our standards.
Hmm.
And you
Hmm.
teach people, and I tell clients this all the time, and somebody said this on, a previous guest said this on this platform as well. You teach people how to treat you. So you teach people, you set the tone for what you're going for and what you're not going for. And so, as you alluded to, when you're consistently a man of your word and you stand on business and you're following through on the things that you said you were going to do, good or bad, as a reward or punishment, guess what?
Hmm.
People know how far to go and where not to go with it.
Right.
Makes
Right.
life easier.
Absolutely.
It makes it so much easier.
I will say that one thing I applaud you for is, like what you alluded to at the very beginning about partnership and respect. Just because you're the man in the house, you view your wife as a co-facilitator. For those of you guys who are not therapy inclined or not therapists or partake in therapy, a co-facilitator is someone who is leading the group along with the person that's leading the group.
Right.
They're not a sidekick, they're not a passenger, they're of equal standing. And so he, as the leader of his household, views his wife as a co-facilitator. She is equal to him. She is not subservient to him. She is not lesser than him. She's not his sidekick. She's not, the Robin to his Batman. She is his partner in all things. And, being willing to, view her as a co-facilitator and actually execute that, I think is very important. I definitely, I really think that's, something that a lot of us lack, is understanding that leadership isn't solo. It's a partnership, and a healthy household runs smoothly with mutual respect and mutual understanding.
Some of the leadership qualities I wanted to talk about that we see in the book, Marcellus, which a lot of people aren't aware of what good leadership looks like, right? One of the first things that I saw with in the book was self-awareness, right? You're very self-aware of what was going on with you
Yes.
in a lot of different situations. As a matter of fact, you even discussed some trauma when your brother died, right?
Mm.
Some of those feelings, right? And for those people who don't understand, if you're not aware of what's going on, if you can't name those feelings, you can't deal with them. Uh,
Absolutely.
Large emotions, you have to be able to name them to be able to deal with it. and you're emotional, obviously you're a therapist, right? And also, what I left out, he's studying for his doctorate. So Dr. Bromes will be the
Coming
next thing
soon.
we have to know you next time you're on the show, right? So, but one thing is, how to express your emotions, and you have the emotional vocabulary. A lot of men don't have that, right? And not saying that they can't develop that skill, but that's why you go to therapy. And so I noticed that, and you had the communication down, you had the collaboration with your wife, you had the influence of your family, showing integrity, showing courage, showing the resilience, right, of coming back from different points of contention of stuff that happened in your life and your family, right? And that's what really pulled me into reading the book. And it's a short read. It wasn't like, oh, it's like 1,000 pages. I think it was like 50 pages or something like that. And I was able to kind of digest it quickly. But knowing how to express yourself, especially as being a therapist, I know that's a bonus for you. But regardless, in your family, have you been able to kind of teach the rest of the family, hey, explain to me what's going on with you? Like, teaching them the I feel like this, or have you been able to do that with your boys?
It was hard. I'm not gonna lie. Initially, because they're boys, and I'm used to giving them that tough love. But I had to learn, just how I had to learn as an adult, how to express my feelings and how to communicate my emotions in a healthy way. Because a lot of times we create it in an unhealthy way. So I had to like take a deep breath type thing, and kind of like, hey, what's going on? Sometimes I have to catch myself because I'm so used to from the way I was raised to
Right.
that tough love, but I have to catch myself, pinch myself, or sometimes my wife say, hey, just talk to him talk to him this way. He's having a bad day. Sometimes I don't know what's going on, and then she'll fill me in, and because she picks him up from school, and they
Right.
might have a bad day, something might have happened at school, or they might have a headache, whatever it may be, and I don't know what's going on. I hear the middle of the conversation, and she'll tell me, fill me in, like, hey, this is what's going on. You need to talk to him. Talk to him, and then I'll try to do the healthy approach.
The healthy approach, right?
Yeah, the healthy approach. Yeah, it's a struggle
Yeah.
because, like I said, I've been raised a certain way to just
And,
react because you want to just kind of like make it disappear, if that
Uh-huh.
makes sense.
well,
But I
well,
have to like, no, they
speak on
have to
that.
go through it. They
Yeah.
have to
So
go through it.
speak on that. A lot of people that were raised in a certain household where everybody was kind of reactive, right? It teaches you to be like that instead of being, proactive or responsive, right? We're reactive to things. So speak on that a little bit about the way your household, the way you grew up compared to how you've cultivated your own household.
The way I grew up is that, they didn't want boys shouldn't cry, and kind of like get over it type thing.
Uh-huh.
And then I realized when I first started counseling that I started to do that with my clients. Like if they're going through something, try to be like a problem solver, like a quick fix, patch it up, patch up the leak in the roof instead of replacing the roof.
Right.
Um, and I had to learn. Actually, I heard a quote from Michael Jordan. Actually, he said something like, "You can't expect the glory if you don't go through some type of suffering. Like you have to go through, the basics. You have to go through the hard work. You can't just magically just want a reward if you don't have to go through it. So in counseling and even at home, you have to go through their emotions, go through whatever they're going through to be able to feel like they accomplished something or did something. I don't want to be like a fixer all the time. And I learned that, sometimes I have to let them just deal with it, whatever they're going through, try to talk to them, try to help them the best that I can. But at the same time, they have to go through it because if they don't go through it, when they become adults, they're not going to understand how to handle simple, simple things that may not go their way.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of kids today, how they react to being rejected by someone. I saw something where a guy got rejected by a woman, and I ended up killing her over it because he couldn't deal with the rejection. Sheltered all his life. Parents did everything for him, and somebody wasn't interested, and he couldn't take it. Like he couldn't take a no, take it as a no. So
Right.
I don't want my kids to grow up not being able to deal with their emotions, not being able to deal with rejection or whatever they're going through. They need to go through it so they can experience it and be able to handle it when they get older.
That's right.
Well, I mean, what one of the things that I did like about what you just said was the fact that you recognize that there were certain things that you were raised in doing that you recognize would not work with your children.
Hmm.
And I mean, that speaks to growth and it speaks to, emotional maturity that you recognize that this is how you were raised and it may have worked for you, but it's not going to work for my kids. So I might need to change my approach. I might need to change how I address them. I might need to stop, pause, and recalibrate and reassess some things before I act. And I think that it's important for a lot of us to take that time to recognize that everything is not always going to work all the time. And it's
Right.
okay to be adaptable. It's okay to evolve with time. It's okay to change our approaches. We don't always just have to do things the way we've always seen them done. And I think that for us as males, we tend to do that. Well, my dad handled things this way because one of the things that we tend to do as males is we tend to emotionally suppress things. And I've always said on here, the things that you don't address, the things that you don't heal from, the things that you don't process, the things that you don't unpack will eventually address you. And you recognize that, hey, the way I was raised may not have been the best way. It was good enough to get me there, but it may not be the best way for raising my children right now. And as the leader, I have to be willing to adapt and evolve and grow
Right.
with the times in order to ensure that my kids are getting the best experience that they can right now.
That's
I
right.
like your point about the suppressing the emotions and they'll eventually catch up to you because that's exactly explains my um situation when my brother passed away. I
Mm-hmm.
thought I just kept it in. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go to school and just just ignore it, like it
Mm-hmm.
didn't bother me. And I just remember just breaking down and not being able to control it in the middle of the Starbucks cafeteria. And one of my friends, she like grabbed me like and held me, and I was like, what's going on? I can't control it. When I realized, you can't ignore it. Can't ignore it. It's gonna come. It's gonna catch up to you one way or the other.
Yeah.
So I tell my children that I tell um, friends, family, clients, don't let it, whatever's going on, talk about it
Mm-hmm.
with someone you trust. Don't keep it inside because it's gonna come catch up to you some way or the other. You're not gonna be able to control it once it comes out. That's it. Once it releases, it's like a shaking a bottle of soda.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's gonna explode. And you can't stop it. I learned that the hard way. So a lot of things I learned was from experience,
That's
Yeah.
right.
being embarrassed, and failing, and learning from my mistakes and picking myself back up
But
by the
you
grace of
you
God.
you being humble enough to learn from mistakes is going to allow your sons to be better men. That's one of the key things about leadership is the fact that sometimes you have to go through it in order to make a better pathway and a better way for the people behind you. And by you recognizing that, hey, not stuffing my emotions, not just going in, guns ablazing every time things aren't going the way that I want them to, or something's going on with the kids, it allows your kids to grow up and be able to process things in a more healthy way. Because guess what? I see my father doing it, so I'm more likely to do it.
Yeah.
And I shared that on this on here before that a lot of the things that I do in life, I do them because I watched my dad do them. Like me and all of my siblings, we all drive Toyotas. Why? Because my father drives a Toyota.
Mm,
Every single one of us drives a Toyota. Every
wow.
single one of us has degrees with an S because my father has degrees with an S. Every single one of us has careers with an S because my father has careers with an S. Hell, I get my hair cut every week because my dad gets his hair cut every week. We literally get our hair cut on the same day. So seeing my dad do things a certain way inspired me to do things that certain way as well. And so by you recognizing that, hey, there's a better way for me to be, that what worked for me wasn't always the best and it wasn't the healthiest, is what leadership is. You're leading by example. So your children then see you and then they then want to emulate because dad does it. So I need to be doing that as well.
Right. Right. And matter of fact,
Wow.
Marcellus, you kind of speak to some of that in the chapter real world lessons, right? In the book, where you start discussing like, being in your internship and and going through that and then realizing like, hey, I need some more stamina, right? Like there's a lot going on. And then you talk about self-care, right? I had to learn that
Mm-hmm.
self-care was important.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading that and I said, man, so you go through a whole like, transformation while you're doing that internship, and you
Yes.
start realizing, hey, wait, I got to take care of my self-care because this is a lot. It's stretching me, you know?
Yeah, and like RJ said, like having a strong father influence is important. My father was there, but he had like a lot of migraine headaches and things like that, so he wasn't really like involved with us as much. So a lot of his habits I had like that I picked up, I had to like change it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I had to learn a lot of things, like a lot of things from school or other people, other peers, as far as like self care is concerned. Because growing up, you were respected if you just
Right.
work nonstop. They didn't believe in vacations. Even if they had the vacation, they wouldn't take it. And one of my first jobs in mental health, there were people that I worked with that had like a bank of all this vacation time they never took. Never took it. Just worked
Crazy.
every single day, almost. Maybe took a day off here and there for a medical appointment, but never took any time off. To the point where they started to have medical issues because of it. They never took a
Mm-hmm.
vacation, never took time off. And if you took time off, they'll look at you like, "Why are you taking time off? You should be working. Why are you taking?" I was like, It's paid vacation." Oh, but still, what do you mean? But still, it's free vacation. I mean,
Uh-huh.
self
Right.
care. If it's free, I'm getting paid for it. Why not take it off? Because their attitude was like, you're going to be behind in your work when you come back, and
Yeah.
it's all about working. And no, I had to change that mindset. But I had a negative mindset. And RJ pointed out a lot of good qualities he got from his father. My father didn't drive. He refused to drive. He didn't go. He didn't finish school. He had like probably like an eighth grade education. My mom, eighth grade education maybe. I don't even think they graduated elementary when they came up. So it was all everything kind of fell on us. It was like pressure for us to better ourselves and get a degree, all that stuff. So I didn't have anything to look up to as far as like uh, education accomplishments. I think I'm the first male in the family to get a degree, and my sister, she got her degrees as well. My brother, he was the oldest. He um, got a GED. So as I'm saying, so we didn't have a lot to look up to. So, but I had to like start my own family and have my own goals and learn, re unlearn a lot of negative behaviors, if that makes sense. So
Right.
having a father is really important, whether they're there or not. Even I've even heard stories of people that not having fathers, and people that knew their father would say, "Hey, you remind me of your father. You have all these qualities of your father, and you guys did the exact same thing, even though you guys never interacted with each other." It's
Mm-hmm.
amazing how the bonds, the genetics, and all the behaviors are still passed on, even though they might not have any type of interaction or contact with each other.
Yeah, for sure. And touching on what Marcellus you said earlier, just about kind of having that that mindset that I got to work, right? If people, especially people in this show can relate, both myself and Marcellus are from an Afro Caribbean background, right? Caribbean people just work, right? Like that's the mentality: work or
Yeah,
go to school. You got to do one of the two.
yeah.
If you don't do one of the two, you ain't nobody talking to you.
You
You
ain't
know what
nothing.
I'm saying? Yeah, you gonna be an outcast. You got to work, right? And sometimes the hard work ethic is good, but we see that there are also negatives to that. If you just work, you're not paying attention to your family, right?
Yes,
Uh, you
yes,
you can't pour into your kids if you're working 12 hours a day. It's almost impossible, right? You get home at night and you can start yelling and screaming and shouting to get everybody ready for bed, but you can't pour into them. All they're going to see is some of the stress coming off you. They're not going to see any positives. The one thing that I know from being in an Afro Caribbean household is, even though work was preached to me, right? Growing up with a single mom, she definitely kind of reiterated, hey, school. You know what I'm saying? Hey, education because you don't want to work as hard as me. My mom had her degree, and she had her bachelor's of science in nursing. But
Mm-hmm.
back then, nursing was hard. You had to work a lot. What I'm saying, it was very hard and taxing on her body, right? Working in a
Mm-hmm.
hospital. And I remember her telling me, "You need to get your education so you don't have to break your back."
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I had heeded her, because all I ever really saw growing up was her working and working and working
Mm-hmm.
and working. And it's like, oh my gosh, she didn't miss days of work, right? And when I got to that age in my late 20s, I remember, like, hey, I need to be able to enjoy some time off. Life is short.
Mm-hmm.
I need to be able to take some of my paid time off. I need to be able to take trips places. I need to be able to spend time with my daughter, because at the time I was 29. My daughter was like 1 year old. I remember that. And I was like, I want to be home. I remember that feeling, like, I want to be in the house with this baby. You know what I mean? And I couldn't believe that a lot of parents sacrifice that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very good to hear from a man, like, hey, I know I needed to take time off, you know, and I want to spend that time with my family.
Well, I think that we have to understand that providing isn't always just about finances. I
Right.
think that for a lot of us, especially as the leader, we're expecting that, oh, I got to bring in the money all the time, but it's not just about paying bills. It's about providing peace, protection, presence, as well as guidance.
Yes.
Emotional presence is just as important as financial stability. And you can make all the money that you want to, but if you're not emotionally stable, you're going to cause chaos and turmoil inside your house. And so, it's just very important that we are finding that proper balance, especially as men, because, you have these conversations where you see people online talk about high value men, and they talk about, oh, the high value man has a 6-figure job and this crazy credit score and these houses and these cars, but then we never talk about the intangible things, like, are they emotionally stable, are they emotionally mature, are they
Mm-hmm.
emotionally present in their relationships with their
Right.
family members, with their children, like, how are they with raising their children, are they involved in church, are they in their word, like, we don't talk about those things. We just talk we when we think of the provider, we think about finances. We don't think about the intangible things that you can't touch, that you can't put a price on. And we sometimes forget that a man's leadership shows up in how safe his family feels, and how open and honest they can be with him. If they don't feel that they can be open and honest with him, they don't feel that he's approachable. I mean, his leadership isn't really that serious at that point.
Right.
It's not that deep. And that's where I feel like, like you guys both alluded to, having to find that proper balance of being able to provide financially, but also being able to be present and available for your family as well.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely. Healthy
And I think,
balance.
yeah, the
No, go ahead.
balance, right? The
Mm-hmm.
balance. And I think this is the perfect time. I wanted to read that excerpt from Provider But Present. I said I was going to do that in the beginning because I really wanted to unpack this. So this led perfectly into that. This is an excerpt from Marcellus's book, and it's called Provider But Present. And I love the way he has the different poems, the different chapters. They're all
Mm-hmm.
marked out, and it explains to you what he's speaking on. And Provider But Present starts out, gotta be flexible like a gymnast, catch attention like a hypnotist. Listen up, as a corporate dad, I cherish time with family, balancing work and home. Not always easy for me. Moments slip by, easily missed. Learning to hear my wife and kids, not dismiss. Tech evolves like software. Stay humble, avoid the stumble. Refuse to crumble. Pride, handle with care. God is my witness, I protect, a defensive and an interceptor, trying to listen more, not always talking. God is gracious. Between work and home, I am constantly pacing. Makes mistakes made, no perfect dad plan, still embracing. In demand, yet as a corporate dad, I feel like a dying breed, endangered species, making errors, feeling less of a man, and needing more support. Still, small in numbers, we succeed. Love and discipline, both I lead. repping fathers everywhere. Few understand, but in strength I stand. Flexibility required, team support admired. My skills are growing and my patience is inspiring. Impulses, impulses managed despite society's demand. I do not care if my kids embarrass me. Behind closed doors, I'm setting strategies. What work life balance that matters to me. Trying not to be humorless, displaying joy. I am new to this. Step by step, resistive like a traveler awaiting a flight, praying to God for strength and light. Relief at last, approved PTO, mental rest and peace, not rest in peace. Torn between the task of children's pleas, they want attention, and I juggle both with intention. Coworkers step up, no need to drown in responsibilities. Exhausted, yes, still I'm pushing forward, steady with abilities. Long nights, tough days, focused on my craft like solving crime scenes, mindless in every draft. Protect and nurture, as fierce as a grizzly, I lead. And it goes on further. And I ended it there because we start to see you
Yeah.
talk about all of the leadership that has to go on while
Mm-hmm.
managing your family. So can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, like juggling between work, juggling between home, setting boundaries at work, setting boundaries at home. Um, Sometimes I miss some of the kids' events because I might have like a project, but at the same time, I might miss something at work because I have to attend my kids' events or a medical appointment. So I have supportive teammates. They'll cover for you if needed, if you're out. So that's a blessing. I have that. I just learned, that I'm not gonna let my family. I have to set boundaries with my family and also with work. As far as I'm not gonna let them just overpower me either side. I'll let them know like, okay, I can't do it or I can do it either way. Because if I'm always saying yes to my family, they're not going to appreciate it. And if I always say yes to my work, they're not going to appreciate me as well. So I always create a healthy balance with both. I understand they're both important, but I have to still set that healthy boundary with both.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it's really, and it just shows growth. I make a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of bad decisions. Juggling between the two jobs, but family is just as important as work, and work is just as important as family.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that it's important that we find that proper balance, that one should not supersede the other, especially when it comes to, just being present for your family. We get caught up in the rat race of everyday life and trying to get tasks done, meet certain expectations. And at the end of the day, making that, being intentional and being very purposeful about being present, has to take a priority, has to be a priority. And if you're trying to lead a family, you have to make sure that you're available, to, because if I don't remember anything else as a child, I remember when my parents weren't there.
Right,
As an
right.
adult, if I don't remember shit else, I remember when they weren't there. I may not remember birthday presents, Christmas gifts, but I remember the times that they weren't there. And so for me to hear that and to know that that's a priority of yours, I think that it's very important that we kind of espouse that message that, hey, being present and being available to your children is something that your children
Mhm.
will always remember. And that's where,
Yes.
like, we kind of had this conversation off camera. We were talking about my man Cam Newton and all his kids, and about how, him and the conversation with him and Dr. Bryant was going back and forth. And one of the things that we kind of talked about was the fact that with having so many kids in different households, there's no way you can be there for every single one of them when every single time that they need you. And it'll be that one time where you may not have felt that it was that big of a deal,
Mhm.
but it was that big of a deal to them that you weren't there. And because you weren't there, that will carry with them for the rest of their lives, and that will always be with them. That memory will stick out to them as, I needed my dad, or I wanted my dad to be there and he wasn't there. And so to hear you as a man say, hey, it's a priority. It's something that I must do. It's not something that I'll try to do, or something that I hope to do. It's something that I will do. I must, and I will always do. And that's make time and make my family a priority.
Right.
Yeah, because it was a struggle, like growing up that way. So
Mm-hmm.
when you finally had your career, a successful career, um, your mind is telling you like, oh, if you need to work, if you keep taking off, people are going to look at you a certain way or feel a certain way about you if you do. I had to like dismiss those feelings and say, family's important. Work. I can find another job, or they can fire me or whatever, but my family's still gonna be there. So I need to, you know, rely on my family and give more attention to my family, not just work. Because a lot of insecurities come up, like, oh man, I shouldn't take off, I took off too many days or whatever the situation. But I see other people doing it with no problem. So why
Mm-hmm.
am I feeling this way? Everybody else is doing it. You know, 8 o'clock in the morning, the shift starts, and 8:30. Oh, I gotta go. Gotta take my daughter here and there, or whatever. And I'm sitting there trying to like hold back, like, oh, is there another way? Like, no, I have to put my big boy pants on and take off some days, if I have to,
Right.
and just.
And those are the sacrifices you make to be a leader of a family, right? Because RJ said it, to be consistent and to be present, right?
Mm-hmm.
Men, I think we have that heavy burden as wanting to be the head of the household, right? And say, hey, this is what being a good Christian father looks like, right? I need to be the head of the household, and I have to make all the right decisions. Well, one thing, like, and not saying I learned this by default, but what I did is I started to see, right, it was the most consistent parents that eventually won out, right? When it comes to family communication, there's all types of communication, right? I remember taking the lessons when I was in my master's, right? There's the consensual, pluralistic, protective, and then laissez-faire type of family communication, right? Uh, the people who are pluralistic, right, where there's high conversation and low conformity, right? Meaning that, yeah, they talk about what they want the kids to do, and they have all these conversations with the kids, but the kids really they don't really listen, right? And so people have those types of families where you're constantly barking out orders, right? But then you're not seeing the productivity. Well, that's what we kind of noticed. I think that's the main type of family communication you see. But and then obviously you don't want to be the laissez-faire family, right? But when you start to really be consistent, right? And that's the consensual, right? Where you're consistent. Hey, we're going to talk about this. And then, hey, the parents are the decision makers of the family, but they discuss that with the kids, why they're making this decision, why this is being made, right? They take time to explain to the kid, this is the reason why I'm doing this. They
Mm-hmm.
have the most success because they're consistent, right?
Absolutely.
They're constantly, not even the ones who are protective, who are just barking out orders and you got to be obedient, else there's going to be consequences. That's not always successful, right? The successful ones are the ones where they work as a team, they explain what's going on, and they're present. They're very consistent. The consistent people win out. And I had to learn that, right? By being consistent, spending time with my family, being home. And I love the fact that Marcella said, well, I'm going to have to use PTO.
Yep.
I got to be home. I got to make sure these kids are getting to where they need to be. And I have to be able to help out my spouse. I can't expect her to do everything, right? Like, I'm going to have to do some things. I'm going to have to stretch myself a little bit, right? Because kids don't ask to be born. Right?
Nope.
So there are responsibility. And I've had conversations with clients when I'm like, they're like, oh, these kids are stressing me out. Well, why'd you have so many? Right? Or why did you have multiple kids if you knew you didn't like being stretched, right? You're a rigid person and you don't like to be flexible, right? Well, why did you do that to yourself, right? That's a self-inflicted wound at that point. And
Mm-hmm.
so hearing that from you is refreshing, that men, I think sometimes they shrink when it comes to those responsibilities. Well, I have to go to work, right? I have to make this money. Well, it's also, if you want your kids to be successful, right? Because you're grooming them, like RJ always says, you're cultivating them, you're
Yep.
molding them, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna have to be present. I can't expect a teacher to do my molding. They
Yeah.
can do some educational. That's about it.
Well, I mean, but in today's society, we do expect a teacher to do that, though, right? So, I mean,
That's an unreasonable expectation.
we expect to send our children out there into the free world, and we're expecting someone, a complete stranger, to teach them manners, to teach
Fix them.
them, teach them to take turns and to be respectful. No, that stuff starts at home. And I
Home, yeah.
mean, another thing that starts at home is spiritual guidance. Like, you have to lead your home as the leader of your family. You have to lead your home spiritually, and that means modeling values, not just preaching them at people.
Mhm.
You have to be, one of our supervisors that Khalil and I had years ago. She used to say all the time, "You have to be the change you want to see in other people."
That's right.
So as the leader, you got to create those traditions. You got to create those moments where you take the time to pray. You got to create those times where you're reflecting. They shape your family's moral compass. And we sometimes forget the most important things of setting the example of patience, grace, and forgiveness that you want to see in your household. We just go through life and we just be out here jugging and finessing and not realizing that we have to set that tone with our children. And I said this in a previous episode, where I talked about when you are a parent, you are an artist, whatever medium that you want to use. You are an artist. So you have to think about the quality of work that you want to create, that you want to put out there for the world to see.
That's
For
right.
me as an artist, I take pride in anything I put my hands on. And so I will redo a piece of art over and over and over and over and over again until I'm satisfied with the quality. And so the same way that I'm that intentional about creating a piece of art, I'm that intentional about the people that are in my household that I'm supposed to be in charge of. I'm that intentional about them as well. We will drill the same lesson over and over and over and over and over again so that they understand what the lesson's about, why they should be doing it, and then so that when they're away from me, they can execute seamlessly and flawlessly. But what
Right.
happens, especially in today's society, we're not very intentional about the quality of product that we're putting out into the world. And so because we're not intentional and purposeful about the quality of product that we put out into the world, we're then sending these kids to school and we're expecting kids to behave themselves at school when they don't behave themselves at home. We're
Right.
expecting kids to have manners at school when they don't have manners at home.
Mhm.
You know, we're expecting the teacher to do all the raising, and then the teachers, they don't get paid enough money. They just
Right.
don't.
Right.
They do not. And I mean, for us as children, because all of us on this podcast are over the age of 30. Us as children, the way we were raised in comparison to the way that I see children raised now, we are in for a rude awakening, because again, children have no manners. Children are, just ill-tempered, not as resilient. And I was having this conversation with a coworker not too long ago where I was explaining to him, I was like, children are not being taught to be adaptable and resilient like we were. The moment
Right.
things don't go my way, I just fall apart. I fall apart like wet toilet paper. And that starts at home. We have to be that model of what resiliency, what adaptability looks like. Because guess what? Life isn't always going to go the way you want it to. And that's where we have to create those moments of, hey, we got to stop and reflect on where things went wrong and what we can do to be better. We sometimes got to create those moments where we stop and we pray, where collectively as a family, we come together, things aren't going the way we want them to. We stop and we pray, and we're patient and humble enough to seek God's guidance before
Right.
we just start executing and start moving and start doing stuff that we ain't got no business doing. Because there's a difference between us moving on God's power versus us moving on our own power. The things that we gain and things that we achieve on our own power, it's fleeting and it's not lasting. The things that we gain from, God's power, that's everlasting. Nobody can take that from you.
Yep.
And we sometimes forget that, but that's where, as leaders, as men, we have to be setting that example of what right looks like. Because again, we forget that there, as Marcellus alluded to at the very beginning of the episode, my kids are watching me.
Yes.
And because my kids are watching me, they're more likely to emulate what I do because they've seen me do it. They've seen what right looks like versus, because, most things that we do in this life, they're taught to us. We don't,
Yep.
things like racism, though that's
Oh,
taught to you. You're indoctrinated with that. You don't come out the chute knowing to treat somebody differently because they look different than you, or they
right.
pray different than you, or they love different than you. That's taught to you. You saw that. You were indoctrinated with that. So the same way that you can be indoctrinated and taught, maladaptive and unhealthy things, you can also be indoctrinated with healthy and positive things. You can also,
Right.
as a leader, part of being a leader is recognizing when something is wrong and trying to help somebody be better. So just because they're not your kid doesn't mean that you can't go over there and say, "Hey, young man, hey, little girl, we got to be better," and show them what better looks like. Because
That's
as
right.
Marcellus alluded to, all of us don't have the privilege of having a strong father in our life to be able to show us what right looks like, to be able to model those behaviors.
Yeah,
We
and
were,
people don't.
go
I
ahead.
think people don't know statistically. Children are more likely to share the same beliefs and values as their parents. Right.
Mhm.
This is statistically. They've done studies on this.
Longitudinal studies.
Yeah. So if you are teaching your children to be disrespectful, don't be surprised when they're disrespectful at school,
Mhm.
or they're disrespectful to other people.
Or
Right.
no, 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 no. If you are a person that's disrespectful, don't
Right.
be surprised for your
Mm,
kid to be
Kids.
disrespectful.
Right.
because
mhm.
because they're going back to how I was raised. There are certain words that I use because my parents used them.
Yep.
There are certain ways that I talk because my parents talk that way. There are certain thoughts, there are certain beliefs that I have because my parents had those thoughts, those beliefs. Going to church, that was something that was a must. It wasn't something that it was an option. There was no, it's Sunday. Do you feel like going to church today? No, you getting your ass out that bed. We getting dressed and we go to church. It don't matter how late you stayed up Saturday night. If you could stay up all night playing the game, you could stay up. You could stay up with your friends all night. Guess what? You getting dressed and you going to the Lord's house.
Both of your parents went to church? Both
Yeah,
of them? I
yeah.
see.
They
That's
didn't
the
play
difference
that.
with me. See, my father didn't go to church. So my mom went to church. So after like 17, 18, like, all right, I'm not going to church.
Mhm.
And it was like, oh, why not? I was like, well, dad doesn't go to church. What I need to go for?
Right.
Yep.
You know
Right.
what I mean? So if they both were going, no, it would probably have been no problem. But
Yeah.
because one wasn't going when the other wasn't going, after
Hmm.
I got a certain age, I'm not going.
Mhm.
I'm not going anymore.
It was easy to do that because
Yeah.
you saw
And she couldn't
someone
say
who
anything
was
because like
doing
he's
it.
not going. So
Mhm.
what?
Right.
What do I need to go for? He said he listened to his religious tapes at home, so I don't need to go. I could listen to some gospel songs on the way to work or something. I don't need to go because they by him not going, he opened up that avenue for me to to make that choice. But
Mhm.
your
And
parents, your parents were united in that area,
they
and
were that's
yeah,
where and I've said this on here plenty of times. Like, I have to give my parents flowers. Like, me and my sister used to think they were crazy. Boy, I used to think my parents was crazy. But I can see the genius, as my dad says, there's a method to the madness. I can see the
Hmm.
method now. And now that I'm older and mature and my feelings aren't in it, because I mean, it's different when your feelings are in it.
mm-hmm.
You're like, oh, this guy, he crazy. This old man, he crazy. This old woman, she crazy. But there was a method to the madness. My parents wanted better for us than they had for themselves. Like, my
Yep.
dad is a prime example of the 50 Cent's first studio album, Get Rich or Die Trying. You know, you went from a one bedroom house in the middle of the country to, being, super successful because again, he worked hard. He did the things he was supposed to do. And then he was always in alignment with what God had for him, and so, starting off humble beginnings, he wanted better for each one of his children. He wanted better for us than he had for himself. So he pushed us to be better. And that's what leadership is recognizing the deficits that you have and wanting better for the people that are coming behind you. You're holding the line, you're stepping in the gap, regardless if you feel like it,
Mm.
regardless if you want to, regardless if you have the time, you have the energy, you've eaten today or not. There's a certain amount of effort that goes into, preparing the people that are coming behind you. And I think that for a lot of us, especially in today's society, because, we'll go back to that. We have so many, you know, counter programming messages that are out there of the red pill versus the blue pill, the alpha male versus the simp.
Right,
Um,
right, right.
the you got to be the head of the household and the woman just supposed to do what you say. And I mean,
Doesn't work.
it just doesn't work. Like, to me, I want to see those individuals. I want to see their results. Like, it's one thing to say you're supposed to be doing it, but I want to see a longitudinal study where how is your marriage, has it improved over the last 10 years? Have you been married for the last 10 years?
Mhm.
Like, what are your kids like? Like, I want to see, though, I want to see the fruits of your labors, all of these things that you're espousing. I want to see the fruits of your labors. And those are things where, as I said before, like, when you are leading, your pride can't be in it. Your
Right.
Yeah.
pride, your ego can't be in it. Because I swear, like, as a man, if you say you are a man with no pride, you are lying. There are times where there are things that you want to say because your ego done got bruised, or you want to do because your ego done got bruised, but you have to check yourself. You have to check that, because you can't lead with ego.
Right.
You can't lead with ego, you can't lead with pride, but what you can do is you can lead with love, you can lead with compassion, you can lead with understanding, and you can lead with grace, and you can lead with mercy.
That's right.
And being humble enough to be able to recognize when you don't always have all the answers. And that's where, like with Marcellus's book, that was one of the topics that he talked about, was not having all the answers. And then, because he didn't have the answers, he was humble enough to be willing to seek the answers, and being humble enough to be able to say, hey, I don't have all my shit together. And so, because I don't have my shit together, I got to get my shit together, because I got people I got to take care of. He held himself responsible for the lives of the people that he was supposed to be shepherding and stewarding. And that's where we should all aspire to as men, not just, I'm the man, I got to lead and I got to be in charge, I'm supposed to be the head, not the tail. No, you have to walk out the position that you're in. You have to do the things necessary to qualify yourself for the position. Because for a lot of us, that's why. And I was having this conversation with one of my homegirls, and I'm like, the reason your relationships keep failing is because you and the people that you keep dealing with are operating in positions you're not qualified to be operating in.
Mm.
Like, you have to be, it's one thing, like, prime example, you go get your car fixed. I'm not taking my car to get fixed by SpongeBob, who works at the Krusty Krab. I'm
Right.
taking my car to get fixed by the Pet Boys, not by SpongeBob, because SpongeBob is a fry cook.
You're not qualified.
So he's not qualified. He's not qualified. He might be able to watch the YouTube video. He might be able to read a manual to be able to, do some work on my car. But am I really going to have the highest amount of faith in someone who's not qualified to do something? No.
No.
And that's where, when we are, and I've spoken about this on here before, when we are engaging, when we are interacting, when we're entangling with people, because people don't really date anymore, when we're entangling with people, we should be moving and operating with intentionality and purpose. Where is this going to get me? How is it going to get me to that point? What are my goals from this interaction?
Right.
We need to be asking ourselves those questions, so that you don't look up 5-6 years from now and
Mhm.
you're just lost in the sauce.
That's right.
Learn to think ahead, not think in the moment all the time.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
because people all in the moment for the most part. One thing about me growing up is a lot of times I try to think ahead of a situation, like you just said. Where am I going to be, or how long is this going to last, or
Mhm.
if I go down this route, is this the right way to go? Yeah,
Right.
that's really important.
Also, Marcellus, I know we're coming to the close and we're short of time, but I did want to mention that because I've known Marcellus for such a long time, he's an excellent musician. And how much did music really influence you to want to write? Because I know you've always written poetry, different stuff. You've done songs and different stuff like that before, engineered all sorts of stuff. You've done a lot of music. You've always had a good musical talent. So how much did that influence some of your artistic display in this book?
Oh, so yeah, so I wrote songs in the past, but I'm older now, so I just kind of made a transition to poetry because, like, okay, I can't do song, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do songs anymore, but how can I still, um, tailor it to my age at least. And I started to write poetry. And it actually started out at work as a joke because one of the systems were down, and I wrote just like 2 sentences about it, and I sent it to my coworker, and then she snuck it to my boss, and my boss like, oh, did you write this? Oh, can you send it to me? I want to send it to the uppers. And the next thing you know, it's like the upper management and other people like, oh, we like it. So I started to get inspired to write again. That's how I actually started again the second time around. Because I had stopped doing it for a while. But yes, and ever since then, they've been asking me to do presentations at work, to share, regarding mental health issues. Like yesterday was Friday was Mental Health Day, and they asked me to do a poem about it. So I share that. Substance abuse, they have like a certain time of the year where they discuss substance abuse, and they asked me to do a poem about that. I did that. So now people just been asking me to share, the poems regarding mental health at work, and that's how I got back into it. And I actually did 2 for funerals.
Mm-hmm.
2 people passed away that I was close to. I sent one to funeral, and they read it there, just as a tribute to the person. So yeah, it's because one person sparked me at work by sending it to different people behind my back, and it turned out to be positive, So, and ever since I started to write, and it's been a lot of people have been inspired by it. So grateful for it.
Yeah, and also you have another artist in the family. Can you touch on the artwork? Because the artwork was pretty amazing.
Oh, my niece, Regina. She does artwork, and I just asked her if she wouldn't mind just doing the cover art. I sent her a picture, and she drew it, and she was willingly, to volunteer to do it. So I was grateful for her to share the artwork, because it's very expensive to get, professional to do it. Mm-hmm. And my goddaughter too, she's an artist too. She's gonna work on other artwork in the future.
Wonderful. And so I want people to know Thoughts from Within is available on Amazon, and it's available not just as a regular book, but Kindle file as well, right?
Kindle as well, yes.
Yeah, so you can get it. Like, I love audio books, one of my favorite things. That's my guilty pleasures. I don't have time to read books, folks. So if you suggest me a good book, make sure there's an audio book. Don't like, oh, read this, read that. Make sure it's an audio book. I promise you I'm gonna read it. One of my good clients, we've been dealing with each other for a while, and he always sends me audiobooks. I said, well, then I'm gonna read it, because then and we talk about it, because I don't want to lie. I don't want to be a liar. When you suggest me read this book, and there's no audio version, I'm probably not reading the book. That's just it. So please check out Thoughts from Within on Amazon. And Marcellus, blessings to you, especially in your doctorate. I pray that all goes well, and I can call you Dr. Brooms in a minute. You know what I'm saying? And really blessings to your family as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me on. Blessings to both you and your families. I appreciate it. Yes, and hope to see you guys soon again.
Yes, sir. Definitely. So we are going to end the conversation there. This is Try Not to Overthink It signing out. I'm RJ.
And I'm Khalil.
If you like what you heard and you like what you saw, we ask that you please like, share, subscribe, hit that notification button so that you do not miss out on any future content. If you would like to watch, and if you would like to listen to us instead of watch us, I don't know why you would, because we're some very good looking people. My mommy and daddy made this. They did a real good job. So if you would like to listen to us instead of watch us, we can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Audible, Anchor, Spotify, pretty much anywhere you can get your audio files, we can be located. If you would like to support us even more, we can be found on both Instagram as well as TikTok, where we drop condensed versions of the episodes, as well as therapeutic moments that we call mindfulness minutes, that are geared towards helping you change your life one mindfulness minute at a time. But this is Try Not to Overthink It signing out, and we will catch you guys next time. Peace.